Michael with United Veterans Worldwide for an interview today with my new friend Daniel Weiss. I'm excited to get to know him better. I found him on Instagram and found his content to be really inspiring. I'm excited for you to get to know him as a global audience, and to also find his channel and his content and see if it doesn't motivate you to live healthier and happier lives as well. So I want to introduce you to my friend Daniel. Daniel, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you, Michael, for introduction and for having me. It's an honor to be able to share maybe some inspiration, some stories, and probably some tips that will help your audience to live healthier, happier, with higher energy and better mental and physical performance. That's what I'm about. So, story told short, I started my self-development journey when I was about 15, 16, and that was general self-development, getting conversations started with girls, and then later I found that I'm excited about all those things. I really became passionate about it. So I went into Tony Robbins courses and doing these kind of things. So mostly psychology of change. And that was something that I knew at that point when I was about 17 that I want to be coach. So I've been pursuing this goal ever since. So now I'm 33, so it's been 15, 16 years. Later on my journey, when I was at about 20, when it comes to my health, I wanted to lose my weight because I want to be more attractive for girls. And I was also developing this kind of health issues related to my skin rashes, eczemas, and the doctors give you all those topical moisturizing creams and whatever. It was helping, but year after year, it seemed like I was become more and more resistant to it. And at its worst, it became so bad that I had this itchy eczema all over my body, and nothing worked for it. So no creams, no nothing. I was getting injections, which is the strongest. You are getting it directly into your bloodstream, IVs, nothing helping. So I had to just basically clench my teeth and not scratch myself for a few days. So that's when I started looking more into nutrition, because I had this idea that, maybe what I eat has an effect on that, right? I was already working out, I was already fit, I was not overweight at the time, but there was still this kind of missing piece. And so I found okay, maybe I'm eating too much sugar or carbohydrates or whatever. So I reduced my carbohydrate intake, and that was everything, right? So not only sweetened beverages or anything like that, but I was avoiding carbohydrate, which is popular nowadays, and that was 15 years ago, and it helped for a time. So I had it seemed like I had no these symptoms for a few months. Then it came back, and I realized that maybe it helped to reduce the carbohydrate intake and improve my nutrition, but low carbohydrate diet was not the answer to this. So few months or years later, or I fast forward for a few months, I realized that it was connected to the whole lifestyle, right? Not only nutrition. For example, low carbohydrate diet can help you for some symptoms, whether it is your digestive issues or health, skin health, or maybe to lose weight. But if you continue to do that for an extended period of time, as in my case, as I was already also training more, being student, not sleeping enough and so on, it just added up to the total amount of stress I had in my life. So basically, how I look now at it as this complex picture of human health is through the lens of stress, pretty much, right? Nutrition is stress, or psychological, physiological stress. We have all these stressors, and we need like good nutrition, we need to move, we need to exercise, have good air quality, but also good thinking, right? And when I figured all that out, it suddenly like disappeared. I haven't had these problems ever again. So this was like a huge part of my journey, and why I also started diving deeper into nutrition first, just as a student, as somebody who wants to improve their own issues, but also to improve my running performance. I started having like more energy, started running more, competing in Spartan race, and then that's what I do right now as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. You've mentioned a couple things that really stand out to me.
Okay.
One you talked about wanting to get to a place where you had improvements in your body, your mind, your energy. Energy is a big factor we'll talk about. You started to get into the psychology of change and what it takes to change, and maybe we can talk more about that too, which I think is so important. And then you talked about a whole lifestyle, which included fitness, nutrition, positive mindset. These are all very, very important things. And if we talk to veterans and first responders, police, fire department, medical, who are constantly engaged in high stress situations, the tendency for our body is to shut down on repair and to hold things in. And this holding things in not only is emotional, it's mental, and it's physical. It holds on to fat. It stores it as a safety almost. And our bodies start to become unhealthy. Our minds start to become unhealthy, and we turn downwards. And in the United States specifically, Daniel, there's a huge emphasis to try to stop the tide of suicide with veterans who have experienced severe trauma, mental fatigue, physical decline, chronic pain, and all of those things together have produced that negative voice that whispers, you're better off not here. Your family's better off without you. And it's so sad because what you're talking about is a journey that you took on your own to find the answers. And I'm excited to have you share some of those answers with our audience today. Daniel, can you describe for us your experience of growing up? For my audience who are in US, Canada, Australia, India, Pakistan, I want them to know what it's like in Slovakia.
Okay, so I would say I had a happy childhood, nothing like extreme. I have to say that I was brought up by a single mother, and I had a father figure in my life, but he was not living with us. So this was a huge part of my upbringing. I was very close with my mother, not so much with my father, but so she did, I would say, a great job raising me. She did all the best, like the house I'm in now, it's like my mother built it. I mean, I was contributing a little bit as a child. I was working outside, So when I was young, we used to play a lot outside. We had animals, farm animals. We were growing vegetables. We still do. So a lot of physical activity, a lot of time outside. I just remember when I go and walk, because I live in my childhood village. I came back here, and we used to play football like till 9 p.m. or whatever, like our mothers were screaming that, come home, come eat for dinner. And just yesterday I was thinking about it in relation to food, like how we perceive food right now, especially if you are into fitness and improving your life and whatever. Like, we are paying so much attention to food, and a lot of people are binge eating, overeating, or having like emotional eating problems. But when I relate it to my childhood, it's like we ate, and then was not like, oh, I want a dessert or anything like that. I want to go out and play football or whatever. The food was only like, I have to do that. Just get me through it and onto something else, right? And now it's like, I'm looking forward to food. So it's like the food is the main attention. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. And in some of the places I've lived, and I've lived in Europe when I was a child, Italy, Greece, and Germany, food was more of a social event than it was about consuming food. In the United States, I think we can kind of get it wrong, and food becomes more of something we do when we're bored or not involved in an activity. And in the United States, especially southern United States, obesity is on the rise. Diabetes is on the rise. It's a plague of our generation. And so I'm excited that there are voices like you, Daniel, who are influencing people to make the necessary changes in their life. So talk to me about some of these tips and tricks that you have that make an impact and difference in the gut to mind interaction.
And thank you for giving me this space. And I know that in the United States it's harder because I also have clients from the US mostly. And it's a completely different environment, different type of culture, and we have different type of challenges. And I will tell you, like, it's easier to work with people from here around. And that just highlights the importance of your environment, I would say, because it's easier to eat healthy if you have healthy food around, or it's more available, or it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And these are biggest issues probably. Another big issue is, or a big problem, is that the culture, especially what I see in the US, but it's happening worldwide, is that the focus is on that kind of rat race, putting a lot of stress on our bodies and minds. So you work a lot, you are putting a lot of energy, you are trying to be better, you are trying to, catching up with somebody. And maybe you don't even realize, like, what I'm doing, why I'm doing this. It's like everybody else is doing that, so I'm doing it as well, right? Or I should be able to do that. So there is this kind of comparison. And we lack, in the first place, that guiding star, like what I want to live like who I want to become, what my life I want to look like, how do I want to feel, what kind of emotions I want to experience throughout the day. We don't stop and don't think about those things, and we don't have these moments throughout the day when we can do that. So really, the first tip here is, and this is what I also start my coaching with, is to create that kind of vision, like who you want to become, what kind of emotions you want to experience, like do you want to, what relation to food you want to have, what kind of energy. So what's your destination? And of course you will not get there overnight, but now when you have all these different triggers and impulses and interesting stuff that's battling for your attention, when you have that guiding star, you can filter through the noise. So that's the very first step, I'd say.
Yeah. I like what you've said when you mentioned relationship to food. What are people's relationship to food? as I mentioned previously, and in my previous videos, I went through a period of deep depression, post-traumatic stress from my combat experiences, and my relationship to food was coping. So I would turn to whatever junk that I felt distracted me from here and put it into my body. And in many ways, what I was consuming was poison for my body and for my mind. You know, in the United States, if we go to a grocery store to get our food, there are usually sections in a grocery store that are labeled health food.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very small section. And if that small section is health food, what's the rest of the store? Probably not healthy food. It's processed stuff. Now, if I went to Slovakia on a trip and I were to compare a product that we make in the US and make in Slovakia, I guarantee you that the ingredients on the back would be very different products. And why is that? Because the United States Food and Drug Administration is so closely tied into manufacturing of food that they want people to become addicted to these type of foods, to purchase more, to increase the revenue, to make money for these executives. And the result of that is an entire generation in the United States who become addicted to poison for their bodies. They don't feel motivated. They don't want to go out and play football, right? They don't want to do a Spartan race because the food they're eating is sapping all of their energy. And so I love that you've stated this first step, because that's the key. Where do you want to be? What is your relationship to food? And then we get to the next step, which is how to get there, right?
Right. So I'm also happy that you acknowledge or realize this in yourself, like that you are using food as a coping mechanism. And that's what I want to bring out, because many people, when they seek like nutrition coaching, what they expect is some kind of meal plan or direction in that way, like tell me what to eat. And unfortunately, I can tell you, I can give you macros, I can give you meal plan, but maybe 10% of people, those who are like highly motivated, will be able to adhere that. And those are usually people who already are pretty well with the food. They have been counting macros, calories, and so on. And that might work for a short period of time while you are motivated, while you put it like your priority, because when people want to make changes is usually when they get some motivation. Maybe they get some bad news, or maybe they want to train for some race, or maybe with friends or whatever, right? So there is some kind of trigger. And that doesn't last long if you don't change your habits and your lifestyle. So you need to be creating or working on your relationship with food as it is, understanding the food, because as they say, methods are many, principles are few. So we want to improve the quality of your food, and that would be, from my perspective, the first step. It doesn't mean eating only like the bio, eco, vegan, paleo, keto, I don't know what label it has. Doesn't matter. If you were to just start with one thing, that would be having enough protein in your diet. So making, or if you imagine that plate, put like the 1/3 of the plate is quality protein source, and that could be meat, like chicken, it can be oysters, shrimps, it can be tofu. Then third plate of vegetables, frozen, the best, most probably attainable. If they are in season, that's a bonus. Usually they are also cheaper. So over time, when you eat seasonally, by the way, you also make it more cheaper, more affordable, and through the season you rotate also different sources. So you are exposing your body to different minerals, vitamins, which is good for your microbiome, but it also reduces the chances of some vitamin deficiencies. So we are creating this kind of rainbow on the plate. It's also more pleasant to eat when you see that. And then we have like the third of the plate, and that is your carbohydrate sources. Of course, we want to, let's say, maximize the nutrition in those as well. That could be fruit, that could be, again, frozen or fresh, whichever is more affordable or attainable for you. But it also can be, rice or bread even. It's up to you, or potatoes, and you don't need, some people like put too much attention on like, is it sweet potato or white potato or whatever. Well, at this stage, just focus on this. Like, you will get like 80% benefit from just following this one simple thing.
Yeah.
So that's the nutrition perspective.
Yep. And it's such an important piece. And so for this audience who's watching this video today, let's consider what Daniel is talking about. He's talking about macros. He's talking about protein, carbs, healthy fats. And he's talking about cutting out a lot of the processed stuff and going back to the roots of what nutrition and healthy food is. He talks about a protein source of meats. He talks about vegetables, right? Vegetables can also have some fats in them, so can some of our meat. All of that together. He's not suggesting that nutrition means cutting out any one of these things. Like Daniel mentioned early on in his journey, he removed carbohydrates, which is a vital source of energy, and it helped with some of his symptoms, but it wasn't the final answer. For him, the answer involves using a bunch of these and then getting a healthy amount of food from these sources every day to maximize the benefit for our bodies and our minds.
Thank you for highlighting that. I think that it's a very good summary of what I said. And I'm happy that you also brought fat into the picture, because I didn't mention this in that plate. And that is the reason, like, when we look at that plate, when you eat animal sources of protein, they usually also contain fats, like you mentioned. So we can have like more fatty meats, less fatty meats, but also dairy contains fat. You can use full fat dairy if you want. Eggs are like very nutrient rich source of vitamins, minerals.
Yes.
And then I would say also, let's not forget about nuts and seeds, which are really a good addition to your healthy eating, right?
Yep.
So it can be.
Yep. I raise chickens on my property. I've got about, 25 chickens, something like that, and 3 goats. And I eat a pretty regular meal set. So I eat an oatmeal in the morning, some oats. I have a protein shake after I work out. I'll consume for my lunch usually 4 eggs. And I eat 4 because I'm still trying to lift and be really strong. If that's not the goal of people on the channel, then eat a couple of eggs, because you're getting your protein and you're getting your fats in those eggs, which is so beneficial. And I love to make omelets. I cut up a lot of vegetables. I throw them all in there. So then I'm getting my carbs, my fats, my proteins all in one sitting. It's very filling. And I know that it's treating my body and my mind the way I want it to be treated, right?
Right. Great idea. And if I were to just give maybe another tip, is like, I really love that omelette with vegetables. Really great example. Maybe add mushrooms there, right? And then if I look into like Thai cuisine, then they have like egg fried rice. So you can put rice together with it, and you can have this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Right?
That's true. I'm writing this down. That's a great suggestion.
So basically, the tip that we can give here is to really make it, like, keep it stupid simple, right? don't overcomplicate it if you don't need to.
Yeah, and I think that applies to veterans. If people are struggling with depression, anxiety, PTSD, or even a traumatic brain injury where things just aren't functioning properly, it is best to keep things very simple. And as Daniel expressed, which I'm so grateful he did, not everybody has an unlimited budget for food. So then you want to really pay attention and get inexpensive but great nutrition, and that's still attainable, right?
Right. And thank you for reminding me about these challenges that veterans have. And I also been working with a variety of clients, so not everyone is like an athlete, or there are often mothers or fathers who are taking care of their family. They have also their own business, and they are trying to train or maximize also their health, energy levels throughout the day. And I have had chance to work also with like cancer patients and people who are under a huge amount of stress. And when you are in that ill body, you are taking maybe medications, maybe radiotherapy or whatever, that puts huge amount of stress on your body. It's a lot of mental stress when you are dealing with these conditions. So I kind of imagine like how hard it is for you to make even small changes and improvements. And if you want to give your body best, sometimes optimal is not what you should be doing. So that is why it really is necessary to make it simple. So like the plate that I just mentioned, or maybe from the stress management perspective, it's like going to bed on time and not exposing your mind to TV news, like when you wake up, then when you go to bed or whatever. So this is a huge part of that stress management. And also realize that when you want to heal, when you want to improve your health and energy, we have a lot of these triggers or things that battle for our attention throughout the day. So we need to keep it stupid simple. Right? So we reduce the decision making, because all those decision makings or these decisions that we need to make take our energy. Even if you are the healthiest, in optimal body shape, if you have just too many decisions to make throughout the day, you will get tired, right? And so that's important. So yeah, I think this is one of the keys.
Agreed. Thank you for mentioning people who are struggling with illnesses. That's an important factor I don't often talk about, but of course it has an impact on everything. And sometimes what's required of us is just to take baby steps. And those baby steps are still movement, and movement is medicine in so many ways. And when we talk about veterans, a lot of us veterans have, and first responders, I'm going to put you all in the same category. A lot of us have chronic pain. Now, I injured my shoulder in an explosion, and in jumping out of a plane, landed on my shoulder. I had to have the whole thing replaced. It's metal and plastic in here now. So, before I had it replaced, I was in so much pain. My sleep was affected. When I wasn't getting the proper rest, I put on weight. I got more depressed. This cycle. So, like you've said, my friend, baby steps will get us to where we need to be, but there are still things that we can do to make a little impact, to decrease our stress in our life. And I like the fact that you've mentioned maybe not looking at the news at night before we go to bed. In the US right now, we're in a political race. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of conflict. And that can spin people up so that their rest isn't restful, increase the stress in their body so their body chemicals aren't properly healing and processing the food. And you'll know it too, because your guts will start to feel it. And much of what Daniel's talking about here, we can do tests on our own in wherever we live in the world. If the food that we consume ultimately leads to us having an upset stomach or not feeling well, that's an indication that maybe for you, you've got to do some changing to make sure that whatever you're consuming is making you feel well.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing this up. And well, I would just warn people also that if you're, for example, if you are going from a highly processed diet to more natural diet, that means you will be increasing also fiber, and that can make you feel, or your digestion, you feel bloated or something. So you might think, oh, that doesn't sit well with me, or that is not something I should be doing. But it's actually the opposite in that case, right? So unless you have some Crohn's disease or something like that, then yes, you can be increasing your fruit, vegetable intake, or legumes, which are really excellent source of fiber as well, and have this stomach distress at least for the first several weeks. So it's better to increase it slowly, and yeah, pay attention to how you feel, how your body responds to your to the food that you eat. And many people meet that, especially when you are stressed out, when you are running around all the time, or you don't have that mental capacity, because we are not led to think about like, okay, how do you feel while you are eating that? And as many of my clients notice, like when they pay more attention to food, they don't just eat as much, because they get satisfied with less food. And especially when it comes from these, let's say, higher quality sources. And you can practice it even with very highly processed food, or sweets, or treats, whatever you want to call them. It's also used in binge eating recovery. So what you can notice is maybe you have your favorite cake or Doritos or whatever that is. Even though they are manufactured that you want more, because they are so like addictive, you can notice if you eat them very slowly and focus on that experience of food, that maybe you don't even like them. Like many people realize when they slow down that it's too sweet for them, for example, right? Or that it fulfills what they wanted from that food after 1 or 2 bites, and they don't need any more. So you can create that kind of moderation without creating that kind of or putting the blame on the food, or thinking like the food is evil and creating that bad relationship.
Yeah, again, Daniel, for being young, you have so much wisdom when it comes to this, and I'm so glad that you chose to use your gift of knowledge and experience to share it with other people, because I think what you're saying is exactly true. Thank you for clarifying, too, the way you feel when you start to change your diet. You'll automatically start to have some discomfort in your digestive system, and as we input more fiber into our diet, we will experience what I would call fiber gut, more bloating and discomfort. But like you said, that's good. We have to change the bacteria in our gut that we've implemented to now a healthier gut, more probiotic behavior, so that it processes our food in the right way. Coming from the military, we weren't really taught about nutrition until we got into special operations. In special operations, they'll be more deliberate in what you're consuming for higher energy, for long-lasting action, etc., etc. But in regular military, they don't really talk about it. They do talk a lot about fitness. And so in the military, especially in certain training environments, we would do obstacle courses. Climbing over things, jumping, ropes, whatever. And I love the fact that in the civilian world, non-military, they've introduced these Spartan races and a couple other ones where people can test their mental strength against their physical endurance. And I love watching those events. I haven't participated in one of those because I did so many obstacle courses in the military. I don't really want to jump and climb and do all that or low crawl through the mud again. I've done that stuff. But for those who haven't lived that lifestyle, I'm so glad that that's available. And maybe I'll put a challenge out to people on the channel. Wherever you live, if there's nothing that's organized, start something off of the pattern that these organizations have done to mimic these type of obstacle courses, these runs, these endurance events, because it is so great for your mental health. Endorphins will go off, your body will feel good, there's camaraderie, there's connection with other people. It is all around a great thing that I support.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the social aspect is really important when you want to make positive changes in your life. So when you have this kind of social reinforcement, or you are part of that healthy group or whatever, it's much easier because you are motivated. So choose who you want to become, how you want to live, how you want to feel, what kind of emotions you want to have, and choose your friends and what you pay attention to.
Yeah, that's perfect. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your wisdom with this global audience. I'm so glad to be connected with you, my friend, and I hope that we'll have interactions more in the future and have you back on to share some more of the stories of you helping other people, which I think is part of the journey that we as veterans and first responders take when we get to a place of mental health. We start to turn outward and we start to help other people accomplish those same goals in their lives, and that becomes our new purpose. Daniel, any last comments for this global audience?
Of course, thank you for having me, and I think you brought up also one important thing, like when we are maybe battling with depression or this kind of low states, or even related to, let's say, going or transitioning from job to, being on your own or whatever, that can be kind of depressing. And sharing with others, so doing like charity work and contributing beyond yourself is really helpful in that sense. So I like one question that one of my favorite podcaster asks at the end of his podcast, and that is like, what is the one kind of advice you would give? And of course, it's very hard to pick just one thing, but I think it would be really being mindful. Because this underlines whether it's like nutrition, whether it's like your training, whether it's what do you pay attention to in the media, news, in your family, in your relationships. Yeah, be mindful about what you are doing, why you are doing it.
Yeah, that's perfect. And we didn't really talk about mindfulness, but what an important aspect in our journey of health, especially our mental health. Once we get our mental health to a place of thriving, living in the now, being purpose-driven, becomes a vital part of all of our nutrition and fitness goals going forward. So, Daniel, thanks very much. Thanks for joining us in your evening time frame. I wish you the best, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you very much.